brand builders, like we realize it's like raising kids, you know, and it's like you put everything into it, but there is a moment in these times where like it goes off on its own a little bit and it can't completely always be under your control. It finds itself into niches that you can't control the perception of everything. And then I have like a built-in lifestyle brand, which makes it okay for me to live a lifestyle that's fast and crazy and careless, you know, and then make it look like it's all part of the show.
Yeah.
That ends up being a huge weakness.
From my point of view, you look the healthiest you've ever looked. You looked the most disciplined, the most focused, the happiest, you know, all those kind of things. And it's showing, and you can feel it.
Really, I think what the common theme is probably in a lot of your podcasts is that where we learn that all, where we become who we are, and where we get the tools to become the best version of ourselves is in that journey, as gritty, as messy, and as like unexplainable that it is sometimes. And it's the thing that entrepreneurs have in common that most other people haven't, is that other people will never understand it. Other entrepreneurs are able to like connect because they're like, you understand, you get it. Like you've been through it. You've been through the dust, the mud, and everything else, you know.
I've got a friend that's got a W-2 job. He's got a new business. When would you tell him to leave his W-2 job? Once people get to know you a little bit more, that you'll be as relatable as any guest that we find, from an ability of just like, hey, listen, I've got a job. I want to go create something. I did it. You scream authenticity. And I'm curious on some of your answers around how you got to be that way and those kind of things. So that's cool. And thank you for coming on A Million Ways to Make $1 Million, the podcast. You know, I think that, at some point I've just had a few buddies. Like, I think I could just go through that started clothing brands. Like, oh, I've got this idea. I just want to make some extra money, or maybe someone doesn't make clothes the way I want them to. And so I have this vision to, you know, go create my own.
Right.
And they do the SKU. They order 250 pieces and they sell half of them,
right,
you know, over a year. And they've got a closet full of all the old hoodies or something like that. And that tends to be the story.
Right.
And that's not the case with you. And today we've got Danny Dreyer, the founder of Dixxon Flannel.
Thank you for having me.
Or I think that Dixxon Flannel would be the way to say that.
Yeah.
I view it as the Dixxon company. Like, you've created much more than what I'd call just a flannel, and excited to have you, man.
And I'm super stoked to be here. Honored, really. I was watching a lot of the other episodes and just like, as an entrepreneur, you always like look at someone else, I think. And it's hard as you go through this entrepreneur journey. Like, I think everyone goes through this imposter syndrome thing, like that everything you do is never big enough, never like grand scale. And then you watch someone else talk about it and you're just like, wow, like if I could be like that guy, or like, you know, like that dude's really got his shit together. And you take away from your own, you know, from your own being. But I think it's because it's generally like people that are just driven with this, like, you know, this mania of sorts, you know, like that, you know, you set these goals and as you smash them, it's not like a celebration. It's instantaneously that next thing, you know? And so I think it's funny that you said that, like, as far as the Dixxon Flannel Co. part, and then as Dixxon exists, how you see it is like, we did definitely start off at that flannel spot, and that desire to create and the desire to learn. A lot of times, like, we were making products just because I wanted to know how to make everything. You know, it's like, there's just this thrill in it to be like, if we're going to do sunglasses, like, it's going to end up taking us 4 years to get there, but it's going to be Italian handmade acetate glasses. It's going to be this way. I want to learn how to take a Gucci sunglasses and put on the market so a working class individual can afford it at the same price that they could pick up stuff at the surf shop, but it just be mind blowing quality that they've possibly never experienced, you know, because they're not shopping at stores on, like, you know, in Saks and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's segued into just this insane journey of creation and production, which is like a huge driving force.
Yeah. Well, you've created something special, and our goal here is to get 1 million different ways of people that have done it so many different ways in as many different industries as we can find. And what I remember about your story is that you're a motorcycle guy from California, and you'll have to correct me on the numbers, but I'm Danny. I've got a less than $1,000 I'm going to start making shirts out of my garage as a side hustle. And you've grown it into over $20 million in revenue or those kind of things. You can correct me on those numbers as I remember it. But man, like if anything's possible, you're the example of I've got a 9 to 5. I've got a vision. You occur for me as an artist, you know, and I'm going to go monetize on it. And absolutely, you took it what it is today.
So yes, you're reflecting on the journey. It's wild, but I'm super stoked to be here and tell you about it. So I'm from California. As an adult, I've mostly been in the motorcycle industry, you know, my adult life. So my dad and I had a motorcycle shop in Irvine, California. And so mom and pop shop, super small. Like I'm talking, you know, 2,500 square feet retail, single loaded shop in the background or in the back where like we had to push the bikes in and out every day, you know, just to have, you know, business, you know, to be able to even work on bikes. Everything has to go out every day kind of thing. So, to be able to learn how to do that and everything, I'm working 7 days a week there for, you know, for a long time. And, you know, even at that time, I was like a bouncer at like clubs at night just to bring a paycheck kind of thing, you know, and then, you know, fast forward a couple years.
This time frame of age. How old are you right now? And when was this?
So I'm 40 years old now. We've been in business for 13 years. So this would have been like, you know, my mid 20s, cool. You know, and so mid 20s, you have, then have my first child, you know, stuff like that. So essentially what ended up happening was I'm working, let's say, you know, 60 hours a week generally. And I really wanted to get flannels in the shop. And what I kept on coming across was that everything wrinkled and stuff. And I have this OCD thing about like just wrinkles and everything. And I can't afford to go out there and buy a flannel that I wash once and then I'll never wear it again. You know, the colors come out all janky. It's really like very boxy, you know, shrinks up in length and all kinds of stuff I wanted to fix. Had no idea how to actually, you know, and then
why flannels?
Yeah, and so it was really just that because I was thinking at the time, I was like, we really could use flannels in the shop. You know, think about a timeless piece as we go through many different, you know, style changes and everything. One thing that remains timeless is that piece, really. You know, if you think about it, it's like that's a 90s grunge.
I'm thinking of like motorcycle rider or like a phase of life, or you're just thinking in general?
Just in general, everything really. Yeah. But at the time, motorcycle focused, you know, and it's like, I mean, that's an easy sell to anyone. So I'm thinking as a person in the shop, selling to customers is one of the pieces of casual wear that we don't have. So when I started trying to figure out who to carry in the shop, it just led me to really see that there wasn't much of an answer out there for something I really liked. And that kind of segued into this journey of maybe I could figure out how to fix that, or maybe I could come up with a brand that speaks, you know, to this audience, you know, something like that. And so really at the time, what I wanted to do was I thought that, you know, maybe I could start a side business for this and I'd be able to sell it out of my shop. I'm already there. You know, this would be a way I could make a little bit extra money. I really don't see myself figuring out how to scale this business and be able to, you know, make any extra money on it. And I just wanted to make like an extra $300 a month. So it'd make it easier to pay my utilities. I live in Orange County. You know, you're like young new parent, you know, you're just like trying to make ends meet. Your rent's astronomical. You're trying to figure out even then, like, am I ever going to be able to buy a house here? How does this work? You know? And so
do you have any like history of being an artist? Like at that time, obviously you knew how to work on bikes and that sounds like something that you and your father did together. But like, were you the kid that took art classes or drew or like had this design mind, or is this something you're kind of discovering you had a talent here?
I would say phase? Artistic, yes, but talent, no. Like was, you know, I was always into wanting to do things with my life that would have an artistic basis to them, but never really, you know, good enough at them. Like it was like at one point I wanted to do hair, and then I realized like I'm gonna end up bald at a very young age. And then like, I was like, I wanted to be a chef. And then I thought about it more as I was like working in kitchens and stuff that I really didn't like it. And I think like, I just wanted to be this guy on TV that had neck tattoos and was like really artistic at something. And I was just like, and really didn't enjoy cooking that much when it, you know, came to a job. I enjoy it now, but I don't have to do it for a job. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was probably like I wanted to have an artistic outlet, but just didn't know how to get there. On the side of entrepreneurism, however, I've found that I kind of was talented in that because I had a lot more ideas, I think, than my father did in how to run the business, how to scale, how to change things, and his desire to constantly change, which I would find much later down the line is like one of those gift and curse like types of thing with the entrepreneur, right? And then there was this point where I think my first like somewhat successful business, as I call it, was like my wife at the time was doing she worked at a title company and escrow company, and I found out they had couriers that did escrow docs, and they would pay a bunch of money to go LA and back on rushes. So I hired a bunch of motorcycle guys because you could split lanes in California, and started a courier company that I was running at the same time out of the shop and dispatching them and just paying them in cash. It was like, hey, like,
that's genius,
dude, you can like, and there were sport bike guys. I'm like, you guys are already risking your lives, you know, for thrill. Like, just put on like a messenger bag and like run there. All you got to do is drop these docs off and blah, blah, blah. And I had like a price list and everything for who they're using. So I created that business, and I'd be there at the counter, like doing my job, you know, like slinging parts and stuff, and then like dialing in these things, and then learned how to like hit like multiple routes, like do stuff like that. And then, but it was like an influx of money, and I did everything with it that you would imagine somebody in their mid-20s would do. And it was like, all of a sudden I was just like, there's this new world of like bottle service at the club and limos, like for no reason at all. You know, you're like, I want to get in this limo and take me to downtown Huntington Beach. Like, you know, just like dumb stuff like that. Had nothing to show for it, you know, with the small amount of time that I was doing that. But it was like my first taste of that. And then being like, I could do something. Like there are ideas that are viable out there. There are ways to get there, right? You know, a million different ways to make $1 million, right? And I didn't do a ton with that, but at that time, you know, like maybe an extra couple grand a month that's a huge thing. Like I was like, I made it, you know, for 6 months.
Part of what I've seen a lot that's opened the doors for people is when they realize they have the ability to create,
right?
Like when that it's a confirmation. I had an idea and it worked. Might not have worked perfectly, but like it resulted in some form of progression towards where I'm trying to go. And oftentimes that unlocks Pandora's box to where, you know, absolutely your blessing and your curse that you were talking about, or you're just like, man, I might have unlocked a monster here.
See, I absolutely agree. Cause when I look back at that, I think what I learned, and it was like unlocking that box. The big thing is like you talk to a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs, and they get stuck in this phase of logos and business cards and everything else. This is something fast I put together, and it's like, it didn't even really matter. I didn't even know what to call it, but like our motorcycle shop was called Cycle City Motorsports, and we went by CCM all the time. So ease of business and creating an entity, which I just figured out how to do online, like, you know, on LegalZoom or something. I kept the CCM and called it like, I can't remember, City something, City Couriers and Messengers. So it followed that same CCM kind of format. So I wasted no time with business cards or with all the other stuff that you think you need that image. It was straight to the point of how to produce and to produce quick. And so that, I think, definitely, as to what you're saying, is like it unlocked this thing that it's like, it's possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. These Xerox copies they're taken care of. I have this computer that's like the cheapest computer I can find at Best Buy with a coupon or something. You know,
you're not giving them branded backpacks to carry the docs in and special folders. It's like, that's your guys' responsibility. Don't make sure they're not wrinkled by the time they get there.
I like gave the guys like 2 polo shirts each, and was like, you know, if they didn't last, I was like, I'm gonna need to get those shirts back. You know? There's only 10 of them. But yeah, that definitely opened it up. So when I started having that idea with the flannel thing, I obsessed over it. And so our first logo, funny enough, is like, I think this is the first time I could really remember not being able to sleep at night because it was like obsessing over it, which is still a common theme in my life now. Well, this is when it really first started happening. And I had this idea of this certain logo with these hammers and the crest and stuff. I know nothing about computer design or anything. Not a good tech person. To this day, like my wife has to hook up our new printer or like figure something out. Like I can't do it. Like I'm not a tech guy. That's just not my thing. And so I go back to the shop. I open up the shop early. It's like 4:00 in the morning or something like that. And I go on this computer, which is like a dirty motorcycle shop computer with like Windows 98 on it or something. Who knows? And this is in, So this is in like 2012, and like it's a super outdated like computer, and it's just filled with grease and and like whatever. But I remembered how to use Microsoft PowerPoint from high school, and so I went on PowerPoint and just like tried to put these things together. I took a picture of it with like who knows like whatever came before iPhone 1 or something, like some Motorola
BlackBerry.
thing. Yeah, like just had graduated from like having the Snake game on it or something. And I found this thing online that like this place would make 100 labels and essentially, and they would do the digitizing for the art for free. And so for this, I just sent them this picture from my phone, through an email, and they weren't stoked to work with it. With it at all. It looked terrible, but it was like I did what I had to do to cross that off the, to check that box, and didn't really like, didn't obsess into that. Was more obsessing over, this is why I want to create this brand. I can make a market for it because I know that there's a market there. I know that there's a clear direction. And then from a why, you go on to like, how you're going to do that. So it's like right away hit the how, and the what is really the last thing you got to worry about on that. All the rest of the things of banners and image and everything else, I think is like really the last thing on my mind. It's like that, the grandeur, like image of stuff. It's not needed. It really isn't. It's like you get down to brass tacks and keep things really simple, you're able to progress. And so basically from there, I have $180 left. And so, a lot of times, like you'll see at our headquarters and stuff, there's a big graffiti mural that says $180 in a dream. And that's all I had. It's like, you're trying to hang on and pay all your, you pay your bills, be like a good providing father or whatever, you're still figuring all that out too. You're in your 20s. And at the same time, I'm very youth-like in how I am. I'm very childlike. And so like, I'm still at this point think that I'm supposed to be able to live like I'm 21 years old forever, and, and have fun and ride motorcycles and be free. And like, maybe this encapsulates like this piece of lifestyle or something, And so it was a gnarly part of this journey. And it's like, so I went down to the LA Fashion District, found these certain flannels that were going to kind of check the box right there, because everyone I had talked to about going into production, there's no way I had enough money for that. And instead of I'll say this, I think that there's a huge lesson in this to people wanting to become entrepreneurs. Instead of focusing on my can't or why it won't work, because everybody out there, family, friends, everything is going to tell you why it can't work. And I'm not interested in that at all. And to this day, I'm not interested. The people on my table will not sit there and tell me every reason why it can't work. I want every reason it can, because that's where my focus is going to be. And after that, I have a proven track record that if you give me every reason it can, I will make the one who makes sure it gets across the finish line. And I will make sure that I'm the one proving that it will work, And so there was every reason why I couldn't. So I had $180, went there, figured this out. They said, we're thinking about discontinuing our flannels, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I think I could figure out how to sell a lot of them if you let me relabel them. And so they're already branded. So there's this brand called Yago, and it was only available in those 5 for $10, like t-shirt stores, but somehow this flannel is way better than, the stuff that's being put out for $70, right? And so I wanted to find out why though. I knew nothing about material makeup. I knew nothing about fashion design. I didn't go fit them or anything like that. I dropped out of high school the day I turned 18. I signed myself out. I was extremely, extremely intelligent. And, if I applied myself, I could be really good, but I knew that college wasn't for me. I wasn't going to go the path that my parents wanted me to go. I never was like that. I was absolutely defiant, and I'm not proud of that, but it's who I was, And so I look back on it. It doesn't make me who I am at all, but it was the path that I chose, and it made it a lot harder. Yeah. But, I learned a lot from those trials and tribulations. Right. And so not having that education and everything, I just looked at it as like, I kind of took that and had a chip on my shoulder that I will prove you wrong. Like no matter what, I'm going to make this work and happen. And again, the goal only being $300-400 a month, right?
So you're sitting here at the fashion district saying, "Hey, I think I could sell a lot of these things."
Yeah.
In your head, you're like, by a lot, I mean 15 a month.
Like 100, I ordered 100 tags and I was like, yeah, check this out. Got 100 labels. And then my friend's girlfriend's sewing these in by hand. Like we have them big black trash bags, sewing in by hand. So then I started Instagram, and went through.
Instagram's relatively new.
Yep.
It's right at the time in 2012, 13 range.
Right. And it was like beginning in 2013. It's like January 2013. Started like kind of pushing it, taking pictures of my friends at the skate park. Cause we would get together on like Sundays. We call them like dad skate days. Try to like keep us young while we're like, you're just like new dad and whatnot. So we get together to skateboard and stuff like that, ride motorcycles, start taking pictures of all that stuff, kind of creating in essence a lifestyle brand, and that's kind of where it started. And after that, I just set up anywhere I could. And then people were actually buying them. And then I did have to reorder labels. And then what I just kept on doing was, rather than spending that money, had I learned that lesson from before, it was like just compounding it over and over again. And my new obsession was how many flannels I could buy and how many I could turn around, And so it was like what you would see like in a movie with a kid with the shoebox underneath their bed, like just like stuff all your cash away. And you're just like, yes, like it's growing, and like, now I'm going to take all these. Now I could buy, I could buy 300 flannels.
And are you still sourcing through this company?
Yes.
Okay. So you're white labeling their brand. You're taking
Exactly.
Are you having to like cut out their brand and then put yours on? Are you putting yours on over top?
So we have to rip and use seam rippers.
Yeah.
So like one of us would sit there and like rip the seams and then give her the ones like with no labels on them. And so you'll notice in the early ones, they're actually not even on the right side. So like in fashion design, one of the reasons why, and this is a really old reason, if there's a label for a brand, it's generally going to be on the left-hand side because most people shake with their right hands. And so for that to be prominent to somebody else's eyes as they're shaking hands with someone, that's the reason why that logo is placed there.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But so they're on the right-hand side and they're hanging from the pocket because it's the only reason the only way we could like sew these in. Right. And it's funny too, not to break off too far into my ADHD squirrel hole, but like nowadays I obsess over things being custom just because it's almost like I have this guilt from white label in the past that like I'll tell my guys all the time. It's like, we see something, I'm like, this is easy. You have custom imprint for LP, whatever places you just take whatever crappy logo and throw it on water bottles and shirts and blah, 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 and everything else that you want. But it's not 3-dimensional and it's very just, a transfer process. If we're going to be professionals, I want every single thing to be custom. If we
graduate from the garage and the friend's girlfriend sewing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like you carry this guilt from there that you're like, you have to show that progression. You have to own this if you're going to be a professional kind of thing. So I keep those days in my mind very, very heavily present day. Right.
Did you have any agreements with them? Or was that just like a handshake deal? Like, hey, cool if I take your flannels and put my own logo on and sell it?
Handshake deal. Like I still get text messages from them. Like, they're like, hey, we got these new colors. You guys want any? Yeah. Cause I got to a point that about a year later, I moved to Arizona. And so now it's not as easy for me to just go to LA, but I still didn't want to pay the shipping because I'm operating on small margins and stuff like that. And so like I would take my day off. So now, so we move here. I end up working at Harley. It's the fastest way for me to get a job. I knew that like no one my age is going to have the experience I had. So I walked in the first Harley dealership. They're like, oh, we don't have anything right now, but we'll create it for you. Which funny, they're right down the street from where we're at now. It was Chandler Harley Davidson, and it's like a mile away from Dixxon right now. Cool. It's funny. I get to be that funny story. Like, there's this dude that used to like sell flannels out of the parking lot here, and he's right down the street in that big building down there.
Yeah.
So I end up taking my days off and using them to load up. Like I get a U-Haul truck and drive to LA and pack the truck full as many as I could buy and then come back and create my warehouse of sorts up in in this small 1,700 square foot, place in Power Ranch that we ended up renting when we got here. So
a house,
it was, like a townhome. So like what?
Yeah. Like you're not talking a commercial space and now this is truly out of the garage.
Still, truly out of the garage, functioning as such. And at this point now, I'm working at Harley. I'm working for the man, working 60 hours a week. Because the other thing is as obsessive as I am to be good at everything that I do, I still apply that to my daily. And like, I was obsessed with moving up in every position. It wasn't like it was just there just to pay the bills. Like, it was always this thing that like, I knew all brands have a shelf life, you know. I didn't think at all like I'm an exception to that. You know, really realistically, like kind of like you mentioned before, I've seen a lot of people like, you know, go into this, you know, and say like, I have this idea for clothing, blah, blah, blah. I mean, besides owning a bar, like the number one failing business, like one of the worst things you could do is start a clothing company. It has the highest fallout more than any other industry. It's extremely difficult to have an outcome there of that's lasting and that's profitable. You know, and it's the shelf life of stuff like that. Very, very short and quick turnover, you know? So I really focused like on that part of my career. I took it very seriously, you know? So I was working 60 hours a week. I wanted to be the best. If I'm going to do sales, I'm going to be the best there, you know? And I try to think that way with everything. I tell my employees now, it's like, which, you know, we have over 100 employees now. And, you know, if I'm in the warehouse and I see someone slacking or something, like, dude, I'm going to pick up a broom and I'm going to do it fucking better than you. And every single time, whatever I do, I will be the best guy that sweeps this fucking floor.
Yeah.
And it's because it's obsessive with how you do anything is how you're going to do everything. And it's really tried to show them that more so right next to them than to tell them, you know. I could tell you, you know, 10 different ways the same point, but I could show you, and, you know, you're either going to adapt to it or you're not, you know. But I think it's a proven theory that, you know, we become obsessive about being
Be a
great,
leader,
you know, it's going to happen.
Lead by example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you selling it? Do you have a website at this time? Are you selling out of DMs off of Instagram? How are you?
It's all
bring a truck in. How are you getting rid of that truck?
So it was all website. And I think that in this point I'm going to make kind of ties back into that whole, like, you know, need the business cards and all the fancy stuff. I had a big cartel website, you know, it was like $14.99 a month or something. I'm not a website designer. It was rough, you know, but it worked. And like, I'll hear people be like, well, I don't have a photographer, or I don't have well, I didn't need a photographer. I barely need one now. You know, it's like, all I knew is that I have the capability of taking the pictures. I'd be like at Harley, like at work, and be like, oh, this new flannel came out, like that would look really cool on the ground with a gun. Like, I'd be like on my break, like, you know, throw it like on the ground, take a picture right there and like blast it online real quick and then like clock back in, like, all right, cool. You know, it's like, and it operated that way. So it's like, it constantly used everything I have. And again, it goes back to like, I'm going to give you every reason it will work. And I'm not going to focus on the reasons why it won't. Because if I focused on the reasons why it wouldn't at the time, I got every reason that it wouldn't, you know? And so it made it like, it was a really cool thing. People were stoked on it because they could tell, they could feel it was mom and pop. They could feel that it was like, that it was one of their own people. It was, you know, is it truly like a for the people, by the people kind of thing, probably in like motorcycles at that time. Right. And I was like living the same life that they, you know, that they are or wanting to. And so it was very relatable, you know, and it's very humanized. It had feeling to it. It had a different approach than other things when you have, you know, huge brands that don't care about you, you know? And so, and I think what I really was trying to do was like, I was never a brand heavy guy. So like for me, I wanted to make something that like spoke to me because nothing else ever did, you know? And so,
when you're in those areas, like when you're in the world of, I have a W-2 job, and I'm looking to break out and do my own thing. Is this something that you were being secretive about? Did everyone at Harley knew that this was like a side hustle, passion project that you were working on? And then my second part to that would be, did you have a goal where you could become job optional? Like, hey, if I can just start selling 400 units a month, like now I've hit my goals, or at 400 units a month, I could break away from my job. Give me a little insight around, you know, where you're starting to get some volume going and what was going on there.
So I was pretty secretive about it, but it wasn't to be secretive. I think it was actually more so, it was insecurity, really. And like online, I could show so much or whatever, but you're talking an ad copy as a brand. So you're saying we all the time. It's just me. But and so that was weird. But then also is like, I just figured no one had heard about it. And, it's like, whatever. I mean, but I was making enough money to like be stoked. And all I was trying to do was lock down buying our first home. But I wanted to save so much and put so much down to the point where I had a safety net of sorts. So my goal really was, so we bought like our first home in Queen Creek and I put $100,000 down on it, but I depleted the company with everything I had. And again, at the time you didn't have, what are those things called? 1031Ks or what are they called? 1099
K1s.
K or something like that. Whatever you get from like PayPal. I thought I had this like secret PayPal way of getting like paid. It was like, wow. I was like, nobody knows. You guys just get this like side cash. This is really cool. Yeah, right. Yeah. So like that is like, essentially, excuse me, my way of thinking was if I put enough down on this home, then my family could have this home forever. And it's big enough. It's like 3,000 square foot home. We're like somewhat bottom of the market, kind of starting to climb up a little bit. And, it was like 2016. So I'm 30 years old, right? So it's another part of the story. I buy my house, my first home at 30, and that was only 10 years ago. It was wild. And, if I put enough down and this payment, I could make this payment if I work at Target. So like that is my safety net, is just that thought. And that thought allows me to be creative for one. It allows me to roll the dice and gamble. Like if I get too analytic in everything, then it's going to deter me, I think. So if I keep everything simple, simply as like incoming goods, outgoing, blah, 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 I end up with this. Here it is. I don't know much about paying business taxes, whatever. I'll worry about later. It's like, yeah. Simplify the math, right? And later in this story,
people, you get back and it's like, hey, you owe that tax, and it's like,
right.
How much do I owe, and what do I owe?
So years down the line in the story, I end up going through that. It was a hard journey, but at the same time, I mean, I wouldn't really change it because I look at it as like, it's like it secured that place. We're good. I had a home to work out of, blah, blah. I'm now like commuting from Queen Creek, Scottsdale Harley, and I'm working in service, Scottsdale Harley. I felt like it was a better thing where I was in management. And then, and at this point, actually, I got to this spot where I was scared to go into our own custom production. But I'm finally to the point where like I could probably almost afford it, but it starts really becoming apparent and knowing what I don't know. It's like it's a very scary time. And I started getting to the point where I was like, well, I remember saying to my ex-wife, like, I was like, I could just do this and I could make like $120,000 a year. Like, I'm still young and we live in Arizona. Like we have this house, like we're good. And then at that point, I won't be working so much. Cause you keep in mind at this point, now it's been a couple years of me working 60 hours a week. And then I get home, you put kids a little bit, stuff like that. Some of the times it's just like making games out of like packing orders with them and stuff, like, so I can get stuff done. And then once they go to bed, like I work until 2-3 in the morning, wake up and it's like Groundhog Day, dude. It's like slamming monsters. I think I was like living off of like hydroxycut pills and monsters, like just like packing, like who knows how much caffeine at the time, just like living extremely unhealthy, but I'm moving and I'm doing it. It's like, I'm doing it and I have to do it. If you can, like, if there's a time period for this, it's almost like I was looking at like a feast or famine kind of time, If I were to go back and redo that at all, I don't know that I would make different choices because it led me to where I am now. But I would say that I don't think I would have it in me to do it again. That's what I question myself about that all the time. Like living that way is it's not sustainable. Yeah. It's like, I think about like, if I'm slightly off on my routine right now, like it really messes with me. And it's like, what a difference in 10 years, like then it was just like, you do anything that like, no matter what. It's almost like you replace your need for oxygen with your need to be successful. And that is what you are truly driven and living off of in that moment.
There's this theme that occurs in these conversations. And have you heard the concept of everyone wants what you have, but no one's willing to go through the journey to get it?
Absolutely.
what's crazy is that now creating what you've created, even looking back, you question if you'd be willing to go do it again, or if you could.
Yeah.
Like, you've been through it. Like, you made it. You came out the other side, and now you're reflecting and saying, hey, Danny, go do that again. You're like, I don't know if I could. I'm 10 years older now. Like, right. They don't make hydroxycut like they used to, you know, whatever. And, you know, like, that's the part. There's a real theme of, man, you got lucky. Like, how lucky is Danny? Like, look at what the life he's created. Look at what he has. And it's like, hey, yeah, that may be true today, but you also need to realize there was this time where I was sleeping 3.5 hours and I had to be present, and I was climbing the corporate ladder and doing that job and commuting, and had, you know, a young family, and was just trying to figure it out. And I don't have this business acumen, and you're telling me you didn't have a board and a CFO and all this. Like, no, it was just like, I'm pushing flannels, man. And I'm getting them as many out as I can. And it's a one-man band. And here we are. And now you become, or you're getting to this phase of becoming what I'd like to call job optional.
Right. Right.
120 grand. Kind of took care of the big goal of the house. You know, here, I think we've got a future here. And that's just if you don't grow it anymore. Right. That's just if you keep pace. Now what? Where's the transition? Where do you get to the point where you're like, Harley, I love you, or maybe I don't love you, but I love you, but I'm out. What was the moment that allowed you to step away from the W-2?
So this moment, I think this is where this becomes this reoccurring thing in my life, and I wouldn't know it at the time. And it's like, it's funny because you see the reoccurring things in the beginning. There's this theme, and then this new theme almost begins in this very moment of this opportunity. And when I was talking to my ex-wife about how I could just go do this, I remember her saying one thing that always stuck out, was that it was, she's like, you will never be happy not doing your own thing. You know, she's like, even when you're in their thing, you're still trying to create your own thing in it. Like, I remember I was so focused even on that job, to speak to that point, that like, I was like, you guys aren't marketing right. It is not my job to do the marketing, but I took it upon myself and created a whole nother Instagram for them to show them I could do a better job. And it was like pitching their marketing team, like marketing and stuff. And yeah, I'm just in management, and I'm in, like, you know, over in the service department. Like, I took on anything I could to really try to make everything the best. Right. And so it stuck with me. And so this reoccurring thing that begins to happen is I struggle, because as they're going to open the biggest Harley Davidson dealership, you know, in the country at the time, you know, I'm giving a lot of input and involved in, like, all the design stuff. Now they broke ground, they're making this amazing dealership, blah, blah, blah. And I could never imagine myself working there. And I was struggling with it really bad. It was plaguing me at work all the time. It was really messing with me because I couldn't understand it, that for some reason I felt like usually I could see things happening, I could envision them happening, and I overthink it so much that once I have seen how the outcome is going to be, I'm more comfortable getting into it and through it, and I see it. And I could never stomach that I was going to work there, and for some reason. And so go through this whole thing, and 2 weeks before that dealership opens, I leave. And so it was like, it becomes this thing in my life now that is like, if I can't see something happening, it plagues me, because I know what that means. If I can't see it happening and I can't envision it, it generally won't, you know, and it's like, it's the only thing in my life really that I'll let, you know, like, the reasons it's not supposed to happen, like, sit there, because then at that moment, it's like, there's a reason for this, you know, there's gotta be, and you gotta trust it. It's almost like a faith thing, you know? And so I didn't know how to trust that gut at that time, but it happened, and it was the scariest moment ever. You have this moment where you're like, the authentic part of you is struggling, because you don't know, like, am I an entrepreneur or am I unemployed? You know, like, I don't know which one really. So at this moment too, I'd just taken on my first employee. And he's a designer. He's leaving skateboarding. He wants to get more into motorcycles because that's where his passion's at. And we ride motorcycles together, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. He's still in our company today. And So we were like designing t-shirts, blah, blah, blah. We designed our first custom line. I put everything that I had in it. So I'd already put all that money into the house, secure that and everything. Anything extra that I had, full bore into this thing. So we go through the whole production. It takes way longer than expected. So we're not
Where? China, LA, where are you making it?
in China.
Okay.
So it was securing like a factory, going through all that kind of stuff. And now
Can we give a little bit of gold to somebody that might aspire to do this? I mean, you flying to China? Are you Googling reviews? Do you have a connect from the LA? Like, how did you get the China connect?
It becomes like a middleman, essentially. Friend of a friend. Hey, I'll help you guys out. Like, dude, you have something here. Which later you figure out that the pricing is way wacky, and you have like a middleman, that's in there that you're not going to be able to afford to keep anyways. But it got us to where we needed to be right then.
Met somebody that had some form of experience or connections to manufacturing in China.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And that gets you in the door.
So it's essentially like having a third-party sourcing manager.
Okay.
Almost, right? I think it's a lot easier right now to find sourcing online. We have a lot of tools available to us now that you didn't have then. But realistically, like a lot of people will DM me and just like, hey, if you could just tell me like where I could get this or where I could get that. And I'm like, man, that's the job. That's where it's at. Like, that's where the gold is, sourcing and production people are like good ones are pure gold in themselves, like that is truly a job where, you're taking contacts, connections, knowing how to do business with, with other countries. Cause they're all different in how they do, there's a lot of ways that Chinese businessmen do business that it is, it's like we look at it as slimy, but it's like that is huge respect in their culture to get a couple more pennies out of you to get it. And when I say pennies, I'm very literally that will later in turn, when you're speaking on a huge volume or, come out to be huge amounts of money, so we're dealing with fabrics and stuff for the first time now. Now I'm dealing with composition. I'm dealing with, had learned how to make custom patterns and stuff like that. So this is a huge time of like working a ton. And then at the same time, now working towards an education of something I knew nothing about. It's very overwhelming. It's a hugely overwhelming area. And then at the same time, not bringing in sales because we're tied up in this process for so long. So at this point, it's like we only have like t-shirts and socks and stuff like that. And, and so you're basically trying to make it happen. Now I'm paying an employee too, and I don't have this income coming in. So I'm actually essentially using my everyday job to pay that. And I didn't want him to know anything about this. So there's this huge moment in my career that I always look back at. And it's the night before we launch our first custom line. And I put everything into it. Everything I had, I had all my credit cards were maxed out. I had $28 in my bank account. And I made sure that he was getting paid the whole time though. And I didn't want to allude to anything being wrong. I had to keep it in. And so that was another like internal struggle that you're going through. Same time, you also don't want to like let your family down. And that's probably the biggest one at the time, right? And yet you are gambling your entire life on it. So next day we launch, we do 60,000 in sales. And it was like, we still got it, dude. It's still there. Like, hell yes.
Day one, you did 60K?
Yes. So that was our first like official like stuff that is completely ours. That's not white labeled. And I mean, we had big days before that, it's awesome. Like we did some crazy amounts of sales, even as the business was the way it was before, that I think that most people would have made a transition to it being there full time much earlier than I did. I just was ultimately like, too scared and really wanted a better safety net. And so by this time, I'm really glad I had kept that because that's what really got me through. Right. So then as this is happening, it's the same time that I left my job. That safety net is now gone. So that $60,000 doing that was like everything that I needed to do. Like, oh, it's on and cracking. Like we're going. Right. And so that sounds like this being a peak in my career is that happening. But it's actually not. It's what follows up. After that, we ship out all this stuff. And I'm so tired and overworked, and I'm shipping everything myself, that I mixed up like this green flannel is called something that was it was like, it was the Southie, and then there's this brown one called the Saint. And I kept to look at the green one thinking Saint, like it just reminded me of St. Patty's Day. And then like, so in 2-3 o'clock in the morning when I'm doing all this and I'm trying to pack all these orders myself, I end up sending out all the wrong stuff. I mixed up the 2 colors. They didn't have like the big label that they have now, screaming the name. So then I end up having to pay to get them all back, blah, blah, blah. Now a week later too, now everyone's getting their stuff and they're all having this common issue with tearing right here. So I essentially ended up having to buy back all the product, eat all the shipping and everything. So the $60,000 that we got was essentially like a loan to float. End up doubling down, losing most of it, but essentially it had already kicked off like our next production. And so then it was like what I remember about that moment wasn't the $60,000. It was how we made the problems go away after. And it was doing it the right way. It was being honest. It was taking care of our customers. And no matter what, like just, doing the right thing really. And like just having to do it. You got it,
Why not just stop there?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you did it. You went out on your own. It didn't work. Is it fair to say it didn't work?
Yeah. Right.
You're getting ripped shirts. Like where's the transition from writing people and saying, sorry, we tried, to, no, in order for us to have success, we've got to put the customers first. We've got to do the right thing. Like, this is our reputation. This is my name. This is my brand. I'm going to make it right to you. Let me get it back. Let me get you a new one or whatever it may be. Like, why not just pack it up then?
Well, I think it would have been easier for me to pack it up had I still had that full-time job and then been like, wow, this is a sign. I should just stay doing this. However, I'm already fully committed to this. And it's like, so now my obsession is showing everyone that this is going to work, because it's a lot of like, are you sure? Are you sure you should do that? You sure? Like, I know you guys have been doing well, but you're full-time. Like, you really want to do that? Yeah. So now this comes back to that.
What are you doing to cope with it though? Like, what do you, I mean, that's got to be the biggest kick in the teeth. Like, I think, like, are you taking walks? Like, it doesn't sound like you can.
I think at the time, to be honest with you, is not allowing the time to even be able to analyze. By the time you're going to sleep, it's out of necessity. It's not like, so you don't really have the option of laying there, like, thinking, because you're absolutely exhausted. And so you pass out only to wake up a couple hours later. Essentially, like, I learned how to work that schedule already. So it was like, you just keep on rolling. And it's like, I think, it's funny because today I have the amount of time to overanalyze things. And as I like am listening to the story, I'm thinking about lessons that I need to tell myself sometimes at these times, it's like, I think I took away my time to make sure there's no other way. And as I was saying before, I was like, this is almost where I start to embrace that chip on the shoulder again. Cause it's, it's like everyone's telling you every reason why it shouldn't work. And it's like, hey, you tried, like, fuck, whatever. And it's like, no, but now it's on. And now right after
you're in the game.
Yeah, I'm in the game. And then I hit my next scariest moment of my life. And that's signing up for our first warehouse, which like, I was just like, oh my God, like, how are we going to do this? 2,300 square feet of warehouse. And it was like, we built this thing. And then like, we built a skate ramp there and a bar. And then there was like,
of course,
the
necessities.
Yeah, the necessities. So you can see like where the priorities were at the time, right? And I took this old office and turned it into this cool thing, but it was like, it was $2,300 a month. I was pretty much packing all the orders myself still, but like we created a place, a space. Yeah. Now this thing it's almost like it felt real for the first time, even though the money was real and everything else is real. I mean, the effort was real, that's for sure, but it's like for the first time, the brand is living and it's breathing and it's existing. There's a place where people could come and experience it actually. Like it's a thing where now this brand could actually branch off on its own and find its own thing. It's like a brand. I think as brand builders, like we realize it's like raising kids, and it's like you put everything into it, but there is a moment in these times where like it goes off on its own a little bit and it can't completely always be under your control. It finds itself into niches that you can't control the perception of everything. You can't control, you can only control what you can, and it's like, so now it's got this space. It's like it's a toddler now.
Yeah. I want to reverse a little bit. And I want to be a little bit facetious, but you're at this point, this very experienced business owner at this point, right? You're this phenomenal leader. You have this great staff and team, and it's all good. You've got plenty of savings, funding.
Right.
Like, no, you don't. You've never done this before. You were a solopreneur, essentially.
Yep.
Not to discredit your first employee, but I imagine he had a role in the business, and the role in the business wasn't managing the finances.
Right.
Or the relationship in China, or maybe even the handling the emails to the angry customers.
Right.
And I've told this story before, but it's so apparent here that inevitably there's going to be fires in your journey. And you have a decision right then and there when a fire pops up on what you're going to do. I think we all agree that it needs to be put out in some way, shape, or form. And if you want to walk away from the fire, it's going to burn and probably cause more damage, this proverbial damage. You can complain about it and ask who started the fire and make a big deal while it's still burning, by the way. Man, whose fault is it? Why are these sleeves ripping? Why are these, if I had more help, I wouldn't have sent the wrong shirts to the wrong people. And,
right.
or you can just say, hey, there's a fire. I'd prefer there not to be a fire because fires cause damage. I'm going to go put it out and move on.
Yep.
And that seems like, man, I just think that fire could have buried you. Like that fire right then and there. And you pick your head up, and next thing you know, you're building mini ramps inside of your own warehouse, and we can debate all day if you want to give some advice to people like, hey man, like, go have your best selling month before you insert the mini ramps or whatever you want. But regardless, like, you were in the game enough to have that decision, and you have your own warehouse, and there's just this theme of resilience. And I don't want it to sound anything like that it's not rocket science. You weren't groomed like this. You didn't have the college degree. From my hearing, it didn't sound like you had the mentor in your corner telling you what move to make next.
No,
it was just like, I'm not going to fail.
Yes. Very so.
Like, I'm not going to fail, and watch how many times I can get back up.
Right.
And
I think this reminds me of my stepdad. Said something to my mom one time, and he's insanely good with business, and to the point where I think for a long time, me and him didn't have a relationship in speaking about business because I was very, I was just very insecure about it. His kids went to Ivy League schools. They did things the way that you're supposed to.
Can I get some? Let me get some of those air quotes before you.
And they're phenomenal. They're insanely good business people, right? And he said something that my mom told me, and she's like, I just wanted you to know that Mike said this. She said, there's one thing that your son has that mine won't. And he's got this chip on his shoulder that just will not go away. He is just resilient. Like he won't let anything be the end for him, and he's like, and you can't teach that, and you can't learn it. And it doesn't matter what school or whatever. And he's like, and I can't, like, he's like, it's just this common theme, just like over and over again. And so I think he was also saying that to her because he like pretty much followed it up with, he's going to be fine. Like, don't worry, cause there's a lot of times in there that like, mom's like, how are you keeping this afloat? Or like, whatever. You're like, how are you paying your POs and stuff like that? And I was like, I'm fine. It's fine. And like, I was really, really like, didn't want anyone to help me because I wanted something in my life that like, you can't take this from me. Like I did this, like I'm gonna find a way. And it might not be the right way or like the one that you wanted, but it's like, I wouldn't accept it, And so it's like, could I get a loan from my mom at the time? Like probably, it's like, it probably would have been easier. It would have made sense financially. But for me instead, it was like, we're doing all this business on PayPal. And so PayPal offers would flash up, and it's like, hey, you want to take this PayPal loan for 20 grand? And I'm like, yep. I'm like, hitting that 17%. Let's go. It's like, but the thing is nobody got to know about it, and I could do it, and so it's like, I use that over and over again, like, just for like financing and stuff. And it's like, then it slowly just takes it out of your transactions. And then, if we had a cash flow problem, I'd use it again, and, and kind of did stuff like that. And, when I look back on it, it would have probably been better to like get more educated about how to, properly set up all the banking and do all that kind of stuff. But this is like, at the time, it's like schematics, like whatever. Like I have this goal and I need to get there.
Yeah.
And all these other things are going. So, kind of like what you were saying as a solopreneur, like running the, all the social media myself, doing all the photography myself, like, shipping most of the orders myself, largely weighing in on design still, but there's a person at a, computer is essentially taking what I'm saying and, and tech talk and spitting out the other side, not to take away from him. It's like that's a skill that I didn't have. And so it teaches you how to, like, you wear all these hats. It teaches you efficiency. It teaches you to never give up. There's so many lessons in an entrepreneurial journey that most people don't understand. And I know that, like, in this podcast, a lot of other entrepreneurs that are listening to this, and they have their own version of this and everything that you went through that grooms you to be the businessman that you are in the end of this. And it grooms you to be also the person, it's like, cause like you mentioned something that made me think about how I treat employees now versus when I first, like, started staffing up and I have like 10 people working for me, and I did find faults in them and I put it on them hard. I paid them so well that almost so that I think that I could put everything on them, and kind of treated them like, I'm going to be successful. I will share my success with you, but like, I go through all this pain and you're going to too. And it's not the right way of doing it. But the thing is like, I think what it took me back to and how I operate now, now I kind of understand, and how you said it, where it comes from. It came from a time where it doesn't matter whose fault it is. And like, I only care about the result. I actually manage from such a loose point now, is that I'm more like the kind of person that's like, I'm going to give you all the tools and more. Like, you'll have more tools than any other brand, at your disposal. And I will give you all the ropes. So you either climb it or you hang yourself. That takes care of weeding out the weak, blah, blah, blah. I don't care whose fault it is. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care your processes and how you get there. I just know what needs to be done, and it needs to get done. And so when something goes wrong, I immediately am seeking, resolution. So I'm resolution based and efficiency driven because of how we came and how, we conceptualized, essentially, and so it's like, you go back to those, it's like, how did we get through all this? And it's like, the two ways that you did was you're resilient and you're solution based.
Yeah.
And then I guess the third one would be efficiency. And so when you're used to those being your three strong focuses, then later on, you end up able to, like, extract the blame, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It only matters the end result.
Yeah. Can I pepper you with a few questions?
Yes.
I've got someone in mind.
Yep.
I've got a friend that's got a W-2 job. He's got a new business. When would you tell him to leave his W-2 job?
So I've been asked this question many times from people, and I have no good straightforward fast answer.
Stop. No, don't do that. I want the Danny answer. Like, I don't do what you think is right or right. Or like, listen, there's people that will say, like, I just don't have that in me, what you have, or whatever it may be. But, like, just give them a sense of who you are.
Right.
Like, if you are him, it's now 2025. Like, you know what you know now. When do you tell him to leave if he wanted to be like you?
My answer is, if it's important, if you will do anything to make it work. So, and I would follow that up with,
you had kids in the equation?
Yep.
Okay. You had a house, you had all those kind of things. So life was happening for you.
Never operate in business out of ego and put you in the wrong spot. So if you want to make something happen, though, it's like, there are ways for it to be done. Yeah. You could make a lot happen with a very small amount. You can make a lot happen without the image. Yeah. You can make a lot happen without fancy wraps and, like, the grandeur scheme of things, right? Because we have free tools at our fingertips. We're blessed to be in this world of entrepreneurship right now that is just the most insane thing that the world's ever seen. you know, and that resourcefulness is everything. So if you want it bad enough, anything is possible. You could do it today, but there's never going to, it's like, okay, when you had your first child, I'm sure that like, you know, you and your wife are talking about it. There is never the right moment. You're never going to be ready. There's nothing genetically or like hormonal that changes in men either, like getting us ready for this thing, you know, like kids here, like, and you know, there's no switch. Like, that switch is what you have to find, and you're going to become who you want to be if it means enough.
Yeah. I hear in what you're saying that, you know, there's a survival mode that you'll engage that will help you get through it.
Right. Absolutely.
If you went back to 2015, who were your first 3 hires at Dixxon?
So
hear that not in who they actually were. Like right now, you're replaying who are the first 3 people that you hire.
One, to take care of shipping so that I can, you know, focus more on business.
Is that just busy work? Like you have the ability to pack, label, get it to the post office, back, unload the truck. Like this is okay.
Yeah, because it's like now that we finally have a warehouse, it's like we have a pickup for the first time ever. So I'm not like, you know, hauling stuff all the time.
But in general, if you don't have that yet, the first person you hire is why that? I hear in that takes a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
And if you could buy back that time and effort, it allows you to do other things.
Yes. I essentially look at it as like, where do we make money most? And what can we alleviate to make sure that we are focused in the areas that make the most money. All right. When I say we, I mean me, essentially.
Yeah.
So less time doing, you know, like, what do you call that kind of work over and over again?
I mean, it's necessary for the business, but
absolutely
it is
necessary.
The most time consuming and possibly draining, you know? And so who's your second?
Second is going to be designer, you know, so someone to make sure that they're able to do a lot of that computer stuff going on as well, so that those ideas, as fast as they're coming in, are actually able to be produced as well.
Yeah. I love about your business the scarcity that you put around your drops, the customization that you put around your drops. Like if you're a Dixxon fan, you know that you're going to get new, fresh material. I don't even know if you could go and find a flannel that you bought 3 years ago.
Yeah, only on like we have like Rolex, we have a huge gray market.
Yeah,
and it's like which is wild. The resale on like eBay and stuff like that.
It's so cool,
so insane.
So you're getting a designer to help with that. I love that portion of your business. Who's your third?
Then third would be customer service oriented, essentially.
Okay,
on many fronts, and except for my baby that is Instagram. Like that was something that would have to be pried from my hands years later.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to get this in the domains of somebody. So I think at an entry level position, you could find somebody to do the packing and
I would
distribution.
Say two out of the 3 entry level and a skilled worker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that skilled worker is probably the design?
Yes.
Okay. That's somebody that might have a proven track record or resume or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay. But you go second there.
Yes.
Okay.
Because if you found a way to make it happen before that,
yeah,
you know that there's still ways. It's an expensive role.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of foot around it, and that's a place where for me, like, it's like, okay, well, I have now some experience in this and I have direction in this. So that's awesome. But I do not excel in these other 2 places, just because of how I am and who I am.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm super, super ADHD. So things that are repetitive to me are just a disaster. Like I'm doing something, but then I'm thinking about 20 other things. By the time I look back, there's 10 packages over there. I now have to check them all because now I'm going to be stuck in my mind wondering if I was actually paying attention to them or if I was thinking about this other detail, and I can't remember whether they're all fact right. Yeah. It's going to drive me nuts. So then it's like I end up doing the work of like a quarter of a person in a whole day when it comes to like, stuff like that. So
there's a question I have for you, and then I want to brag on you a little bit. But from my understanding from previous conversations, today, Dixxon doesn't carry a lot of debt. very much paid for. And you've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, your warehouses are amazing. You've got, what I would call just this masterful marketing program, and you've got a lot of stuff. And somebody might say, man, Danny, if you just leverage some of that stuff, what lesson did you experience, over the last 15 years has made you decide that I'm going to not carry as much debt and pay for a lot of things in cash?
I think it kind of all went back to that first business where, it was like, oh my gosh, you have this taste of success. And I watched myself just, throw it all away. And then it was also through growing and not wanting to take loans and not wanting to do that, because I was in real estate for a little while, or not real estate, but in mortgage when everything crashed. And the people that I looked up to the most, I saw them having to move back in with their parents and losing everything that they had because they were all on shoestrings, but it looked great. It was everything that I wanted.
Leverage to the hilt.
Yeah. Leverage absolutely to the hilt. And that scared me. I look at it as that at the age that I was, to go through that and to watch that crash, it was something that rocked me to my core, and that I'm grateful for, and I saw how it affected families. I saw seasoned businessmen lose everything, and is because everything was just leveraged so badly. Now I know that there's a lot of very strategic, good leveraging opportunities to where you can enjoy this life and it'd be great. However, I would be so stressed out because of almost like this, a PTSD of looking back at that almost, that I wouldn't be able to access the parts of my brain that keep me artistic and keep me moving lightly and be able to keep me fun, smiling, creating. Cause that's what makes me happy. And that's what keeps me who I am, is to be able to operate in some of that lightness. And for me to be able to, I would be carrying this thing behind me. I can't do it. I'm not the person for it. So I always looked at it as I don't want the debt. And to the point where there's a lot of things in my life that many, money, very, people with financial acumen, I'd say wouldn't agree at all with how I do things. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't have any debt. So it's we're cash positive still. We carry huge amounts of inventory, much more inventory than any CFO would be comfortable with, including mine, and doesn't love it. But it's for me, when things are good, we're going to put it away. We live I live a nice life. Don't get me wrong, but it is well within my means, and so it's just that shoestring stuff for me. It's not for me, man. And that's why I lay my head at night. And if I'm stressed about anything, it's just this me versus me game. And that's the war that I wage. It's for me to be better than I ever have been. And that's where my focus gets to be.
I call it the sleep well at night factor. Listen, I get it. We may have been able to go international sooner. We may have been able to do this if I would have leveraged, but we're building a business that aligns for me. We're doing all right. And it is more important for me to be aligned and sleep well and have energy that I know is going to impact the business, which is your creative freedom and those kind of things. And if you're overly stressed, you have a habit of this. I want to touch on it just real quick, but when I started following you, you looked a little different. You're right. You're a little bigger just as a human than you are today. You're more stressed out than you were back then, and it was stressed, or did you decide to make a change, and has that crossed over into your business at all?
I think it has crossed over in my business for sure. I think one of the common themes is when I spoke about the business and in the places where I was insecure or felt like I wasn't authentic, although I was, and I have this great story to tell because of it. It's just this constant need of wanting to be perfect. But I think that could follow in other places in your life too. I was really good at business. I became this person that was known for building brands. I became a person known for my creativity. I look at things differently, and sometimes it's challenging from a managerial standpoint or leadership role, that my brain works very differently, that the things that I find extremely easy are not the same as most of the people that are, that are involved in the company. However, on the other hand, there are things that are very easy for them that are very, very difficult for me to understand. And it's a way of, and that's a way of understanding just people in general, is that, and how different we're all looking at it from a different set of eyes. Right. So this part of me, I think, became afraid that I didn't think I had it in me to try hard or to succeed in a transformation physically. So I don't think I gave it my all. It would be way easier for me to be like, my lifestyle choices or whatever, and I like to have fun, and I'm exactly how that I want to be,
Yeah.
And that lets you stomach it. But then what I figured out was like, there's this divine strength in surrender.
Yeah.
This now becomes that new repeating pattern in my life.
Yeah.
And finally starting to look at my life as a life in whole and not just my business. And because before it was like, whatever happens in my life, at least I always have my business because it gives me back everything that I put into it, no matter what. I could rely on this thing like it's my best friend. And if it fails, it's because I fucking put myself there.
Yeah.
It's like, that is my fault. It's like, and it's a lot easier to stomach things when you're a person who overthinks because you know what you did. And so but you'll find yourself that when you're that kind of person, you also can be very sabotaging in other parts of your life too, because that is a control factor. And so I created this life that I had control over. It's like I created my own Disneyland, and I get to thrive in the ways that I want to thrive, the way that my brain works, that I get to listen to super loud music that nobody else can focus. And I have different spaces all over the place. I created like a Disneyland for an ADHD, like driven, like, person like to thrive. Right. And it's like, and then it's okay. And then I have like a built-in lifestyle brand, which makes it okay for me to live a lifestyle that's fast and crazy and careless.
Yeah.
And then make it look like it's all part of the show.
Yeah.
That ends up being a huge weakness because I was only looking at that one side and I never wanted to surrender. There's no strength in surrender in what I thought. Now, the way that this becomes like a new theme, surrendering to anything. And so this comes a theme in like faith, love, marriage, and everything else. Sorry, I'm getting emotional on this one. It gives you everything that you could want or need in life because of the strength that is in it. We are taught as men to be, we have everything built up and you have everything taken care of. You are to be your pillar, your foundation of a community, of a family, in your marriage is what you have to be, right? But ultimately being vulnerable, there's such a strength to that. And it makes you human in who you are. It makes you a human. It gives you a brand humanity too, to see someone, go through certain things and figure out who they are. Right. And it's easy to just hide behind a brand and an image. So stripping that image out and everything and making it as a life as whole. I started seeing that I never wanted to be judged if I went into church. So I wouldn't surrender at all. I didn't want to be vulnerable in that sense. I also didn't want to be vulnerable in having to believe in something that I can't touch, see, or feel, or to acknowledge that there might be a divine reason as to why I go through certain things in my life, or that there might be a higher power that I have to surrender to. I didn't want to surrender in my relationship and in love and in figuring out like that you have to be vulnerable in the fact that like, that you could be left and you have to put all your trust in someone else, that they love you as you are enough and that they won't,
It translates outside of what you're doing outside of your business can have a huge impact on everything. And it's easy to get lost in it and start making excuses for the other aspects of your life.
Absolutely. If you're successful and everyone's celebrating you and everything, then when you're getting pointed out from like from your wife or something that you're falling short somewhere else, you're like, yeah, well, I was doing this. I'm fucking providing this. And look at this. Like, I'm on the cover of this magazine and like, check this out. But I do this, it's like, that doesn't make everything okay. It doesn't make it go away. Yeah. It's like, you also figure out the other side of everything. And it's like, yes, there are a million different ways to make $1 million. And guess what? It doesn't make you fucking special. It just makes you good at one thing that you did. And so how can you take those lessons and what you went through and getting there and apply it to your life to make you the best version of a human that you can? So you start looking at it as like, instead now that chip on the shoulder comes back and it says like, fuck, sorry. I'm not, instead of me saying F you, I'll do a nice way of saying this. You embrace that chip on your shoulder and you say, you know what, there's nothing that's going to stop me. I'm going to become the best version of myself. And that starts every single day of holding myself accountable. It starts every single day of looking at the men that I look up to. If they all have something in common, and you're talking about the 0.01% of the 1%, they are in the gym relentlessly. They are working on their marriage relentlessly. They are challenging their faith. They are living a somewhat monotonous life, you know, and loving it because they figured out how to hack the trick of perspective. Mm-hmm. And your perspective in everything is only good as you allow your brain to see it. And if you are doom and gloom, it will be all fucking doom and gloom. If you're never happy enough for the next thing, if it's never good enough, you know, it's not going to get there. And so you learn how to operate out of gratefulness at that point. So in turn, my, you know, short story long way of saying that, I started challenging myself in my relationship with, you know, I married the love of my life, and like, that's not easy, getting used to getting used to each other when you're already like an established person as well. And they're established in themselves. It's everything that you want in a woman, that she is so strong and you have to be strong enough to match it. Yeah. And it's someone so strong as they're strong enough and love you enough that they're going to call you on your shit and show you where you could be better. And you have to be good enough to accept that and say that, like, this isn't an attack. This is you wanting more from me, you know, and that be that person that's driving you and able to tell you, like, when you're off and when you're at your best. And damn, it feels good when I'm at my best. Yeah. And so that's what keeps me going right now and keeps me changing, being different. And then realizing it's like, you know, we're traveling so much. We're always on the go, blah, blah, blah. You have to be able to stop and ask yourself, is like, what is that masking to? Like, what are you covering for? What are you not dealing with? You know, if you're constantly on good, like, dude, anyone's happy on vacation. You know, it's like anyone would chalk that up, but it's like the pure chaos of life when you're trying to keep everything together, and then you're like hitting this, and this, and then you have to check yourself again. And I think it's like this relentless pursuit of being okay with being wrong. And I'm getting to the point where I'd rather be wrong. Yeah. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I want to challenge myself to be in places, be around you and like people that you're around that challenge me to look at something in another way, instead of me living in this carefully constructed bubble where I could be just me. Yeah. And accept everything that comes with that, right?
You have this public persona, like you're a public figure, especially locally and now internationally, from like where the brand is going. Right. And just like, you know, on a side note, it's been cool to see an evolution.
Thank you.
You know, like you really feel like I've just recently got to know you personally, but I've seen, you know, from afar, like your journey. And right now you feel like, you know, and social media is social media, so whatever it is. But from my point of view, you look the healthiest you've ever looked. You looked the most disciplined, the most focused, the happiest, you know, all those kind of things. And not to take away from anything previously, but like, that's my experience is right now you're on this personal journey and it's showing, and you can feel it.
I really appreciate that deeply. I really appreciate that. I think for the first time in a large amount of time in my life, I could really stand there and be like, I'm proud. Yeah. You know, and I'm stoked, and I'm finding the new addiction in, almost in progression again. And before it's like, it reminds me of what made business so addicting. Yeah. You know, it's like constantly like moving to the next thing. And then it's like, and there's a part about that that's unbalanced, but I think that as entrepreneurs and most people that are good at it are highly unbalanced. Yeah. And then you work forever trying to find this balance. And then you realize you're like, hey, you got to embrace everything that you are great at. And in those weird, you know, even the negative parts of it that come with being that type of person, you eventually start to hone in on them and just focus on like, okay, if I'm not great at this, like I'm gonna start working on that. And so right now I'm on a relentless pursuit to put myself in any position I can to be a beginner and to challenge myself, because I fucking hate being in that position.
Yeah.
It's the worst one. And it's like, it's the worst one to be not good at something and to be not feeling great. But if you just live in that other one that you figured out how to be great at, like you don't get to experience the full spectrum of life. And so now I want to be in those places. Yeah. I want to be in those places. I want to be in the rooms, like I said, that I'm not the smartest and that I can't just run in circles around everything. You know, I want to learn, you know, and so I think that it's between that and then you know, the surrendering to faith and other things like that. It's like that allows me to, you know, to not constantly focus on the outcome. It allows me to focus on the journey, and that's where it's all at. And that's really, I think, what the common theme is probably in a lot of your podcasts is that where we learn that all, where we become who we are, and where we get the tools to become the best version of ourselves is in that journey, as gritty, as messy, and it's like unexplainable that it is sometimes. And it's the thing that entrepreneurs have in common that most other people haven't, is that other people will never understand it. It doesn't matter how many different ways you break it down, they will never understand it. And so I think that that's the reason why a lot of times other entrepreneurs are able to like connect, because they're like, you understand, you get it. Like you've been through it. You've been through the dust, the mud, and everything else, you know?
Well, look at what all you've created in spite of what you're saying. Like you're saying, man, I just didn't quite have that figured out, or I was doing this way. And like, man, I'm really excited for you as you, whatever we all call, like, I don't like the term grown up, but like,
yeah, it's definitely not that.
As you found what you're looking, you found a portion of what you feel can be some form of upgrade.
Right.
Like, yeah, like, hey, I've kind of put this off, or I put that off, you know, and I wouldn't encourage people to, once I make it, I'll figure all that out.
Right.
I think oftentimes when we can figure out that stuff, it creates, you know, when you can find alignment in who you are as a person, in your relationships or in your faith, the sooner that you can do that, man, the less distractions you can have, the more it can springboard or those kind of things. And man, it's cool to see. I know that we know this about each other, that if you put you and I in the same room, we could go for another 3 hours from here.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to, one of my goals for this platform is I want to give back to people like that are searching, that might not know what they want to do, or might know what they want to do, but not know how to do it. And you've had a message of like, hey, go. You don't need the perfect brand. And this is coming from the artist that hand design. I mean, you personally designed so much of your brand. I wanted to do a little bit of rapid fire.
Okay.
That just gives some people something to think on, or a good starting point. Because we can't give it to them. You can't give them the playbook. But you've accomplished quite a bit. And I want to touch on a couple things. Recently, you were inducted into a Hall of Fame. Can you touch on that for a second?
Oh, yeah. So I was nominated for Motorcycle Hall of Fame.
Nominated. Okay.
Nominated. So, haven't been inducted. However, you know, just even being mentioned, just being like, you know, just being thrown over the top with the people that I grew up watching it, man, it was a moment. That was for sure.
Whoever nominated you, they're not doing it because you're a wrench and you can build cool bikes. They did it because you created a brand that has an influence in the community.
I think it has a lot to do with that. I think it has a lot to do with, constantly remembering my roots and where I came from, and pouring into it, you know, and it becoming you know, or continuing to be my why. Really is giving back, you know, giving back to the community, giving back to where I'm from, and in knowing that like without motorcycles in my life, I would have never been here.
Yeah.
You know,
and you said something about giving, like you've had a pretty cool experience. Just to give it concept, we're late July. Ozzy Osbourne just passed away.
Right.
Part of one of your give back things, you were sponsoring a charity event. You were one of kind of Ozzy's last hurrahs before he went.
So in our UK base, so we have Dixxon UK, along with, you know, all the rest of around the world. they did this huge charity thing, and it was called like the final appearance or the final show or something like that. And the big thing was Black Sabbath playing their last show. This ended up being like, I mean, this is only 3 weeks ago or something like that. It was like 13, 14 days before he died. And Allison and I were traveling. We were unable to make it. And then, but my brother-in-law,
I mean, you just got married. You had a decent excuse.
Yeah. Right. We had a lot going on. But I told Chris, I was like, dude, you absolutely need to go there. Yes, we should sponsor this. And it was really cool. We had this thing set up like backstage. We designed all the shirts for the final deal. We had like, it was like Dixxon, Black Sabbath, like the final hurrah kind of deal. We had this, flannel that was only available there, and all the biggest acts like that you could think of all signed it. So like then 13, 14 days later, he passes away, and we're like, dude, the rarest shirt, that we've ever made, who that's now going to go off on silent auction, and it's all going to charity. And it's like, ends up being right after he passes away, which was a heavy and, terrible day when you start realizing, you start watching these guys that that you've grown up with, and you're just like, man, what's next? This is gnarly. But I'm so glad that we got to be a part of it, and that it was, it was for a great cause. Metallica played, Smashing Pumpkins played, like all kinds of different bands, and they were all there just for charity. They didn't, they didn't charge anything to be there either. Yeah. Kind of thing. So it was great. But yeah, it's
cool that you give back like that. You stayed focused on, and it helps. I mean, there's a part that's just one like, hey, I'm grateful for what we've created. I want to be able to give back in some way, shape, or form. And I believe that there's some karma in that, like that presents opportunities. It because you're willing to give or sponsor an event like that. Now you have this piece of memorabilia, or this memory of kind of being a part of,
absolutely,
a day that people will remember. And
it reminds you of, like when I talked to Chris about it, like the moment we found out he died, and I like hit him up and I was like, oh my God, bro, like, can you believe this? And his immediate response, kind of speaking to what you were talking about, is like, he's just like, dude, it just reminds you for all of us, he's like, I don't know if we'll be here tomorrow, bro. Like, hey, I love you, man. It's like, it makes you like, so grateful. And I think the other part about giving back, because I mean, we do almost a new charity almost every month, and do like, we'll do a flannel release, and portion of proceeds go to, as ranges anywhere from, we do a ton of different cancer research funds, autism awareness, stuff like that, child abuse stuff, like all kinds of different stuff. And it makes it to where, I mean, that's what at this point I think really gets me up and gets me working every day. But on another note, me and Allison are huge about community and like local, like I love watching local business thrive. Like I love what Hooligan Coffee House is doing, Yeah. So dude, like
I'm proud of that.
Yeah. We will go out of our way. It's like to go over there and just show up, and cause it feels like family. They're bringing art, and they're bringing flavor to our town, and you get to watch our town grow, and you get to see the smiles, these people's faces. They're giving a healthy place for youth and people in their 20s, like enjoy music and stuff, and it not be so centered around partying and stuff like that. It's centered around community and feel and vibes,
Well, there's a part of that. I said this with my guys, they make you feel like that. Like they've created a cool brand. I know a couple of people that are involved, not well, but like who they are. Yeah. But man, they make you feel like you just want to go support, and it's right next to Revel Surf and Canton Beach and all those other places that I love seeing that stuff thrive.
Seeing that stuff come out, and just knowing that it's like when I saw Revel was going to come out, my first thought was like, it was like, how cool it'd be that like kids in Arizona get to the point where like they could have high school surf teams that compete, against each other or whatever, right here in Mesa, of all places, and it's just like, but to see far out in the East Valley, this, a culture come out, like I just love that stuff. And so whenever we have like a feeling like that, or with like local restaurants and stuff, we're so huge on that stuff, and trying to make sure that we truly give back. And like you said, I do believe that it's somewhat karmic, we're, what you give this world, it comes back to get you for sure. It's just got a way of working, and that's how, whatever you believe in kind of thing, it's just a way it happens, And so it's like, why not make it like love and compassion and good vibes and smiles and stuff like that, dude? It lifts up so many people on a daily, you never know what people are going through.
Yeah. All right. Let me hit you with some of the rapid fire.
All right.
Let's see if we can give people a starting place, but you have a brand and it's nationally known. You create pieces and you're not shy about it. You've created political pieces. You've created, things that might rub other sides of the world the wrong way. Like, speak to someone about having a brand that's authentic and being okay in a cancel culture today.
Ooh. So
high level, just, listen, where does authenticity play in Dixxon's brand?
Authenticity for us really plays in more of, I think, humanity effort. Really is being accepting of the fact that it encompasses so many different things and so many different cultures, and I think authenticity is very, very important. Actually on our marketing wall, we have a huge mural that says authenticity on it, and so I have a common theme in speaking to my employees, which now we have over 100 employees, doing all staff meeting. I don't like doing public speaking, but every time I have a staff meeting, I have to be a public speaker, right? And one thing I tell them, is none of my business who you sleep with, who you pray to, or who you vote for. Those are all in your own places. But what we do here is an effort. We sell feelings. We do not sell shirts. That's who we are. We sell nostalgia. We sell disruption. We sell all feelings. That's what we do. We are there to distract them from the worst things going on in the world. Or sometimes we're there to ruffle some feathers and make something very passionate about, that's what we do.
What do you say to a young creative that wants to be a business owner? I'll touch on that. Like, most creatives, they just struggle getting, like, they can create this beautiful artwork and they're so talented, but I wish it translated more into a business in there. So, like, you got a young creative. Like, what's your two-liner to them to make the leap?
Never operate out of ego, and you don't have to. Never operate out of ego. Never take anything personal. That's what I'd say. Yeah, don't own your art. You don't have to. It's like you can take criticism. You can't be attached to that stuff because what you see is not what everyone else sees.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I just love, like, your artistry expands so much outside of Dixxon. Like, I love your builds, your bike builds. And I know it might not be you just, doing it from scratch or whatever, but this bringing concepts to life. You're doing it with a home now. You're an artist through and through is how I experience you. I hope that people can listen to this and see what's possible from taking something upstairs between the years into a real business while living an authentic life. Like you go fast, you go loud, and you go 100 miles an hour. It seems like in everything.
Yeah.
And you found a way to stay on course. It doesn't mean that you haven't had flat tires along the way. It doesn't mean you've had to replace this and that and whatever it may be. You might have even blown out a few engines, but like the theme is resilience. And the theme is that, man, like, there's such a gift to the world when you can take whatever's stored in here and take it out into the world. Tell people where they can find you. I think that a lot of people might call you Danny Dixxon, from there, but Danny Dreyer, where can people find you and follow along on what you're creating next at Dixxon? So on my Instagram, at Danny Dixxon 2.0, 2 X's, a lot of my focus, a lot of times is, on a daily basis, you could just see is like randomly, like, this thing pops up and it's this lowrider we're working on. There's constantly projects in there, or there's like randomly you're wondering why, like, I'm messing around with 70-year-old bicycles and it's like, I obsess over details. Details are my job, but it's like my way of life. Yeah. It's what keeps me going. And I've realized it's what I'm really good at. It's also what not essentially good at. It's what really pays me back in my space, my head space. Right. And so it's like constantly pushing the envelope and like basically trying to raise the bar for myself. Again, it's like that me versus me thing. You don't get to blame anyone else when you make decisions to have a Tiffany like colored Rolls Royce,
Like, and so the thing is like, I think over time,
Don't stop
you'll
there.
see.
Yeah, what else
Don't
you got,
stop
Tiffany?
there.
I've seen more things Tiffany recently. I see a thing.
What you'll see over time is that it's not even about the flash for me. It's about, and it's not about the owning of something for me. It's the process of the creation.
Yeah.
And that's what really gets me going, you know? And so it's like, you know, Allison likes to go fast too. So it's like, you know, she got her new GT63, super fast, nice car. Not fast enough for her. So, you know, it's like, now it's like tuned. It's like pushing like 820 horsepower, and it's like bright Tiffany color. Like, and it's dope though. It's the raddest car, and it turns heads everywhere it goes. And it was like, it was really cool because she doesn't see vehicles exactly the same way that I do in what's possible in creation, but she sees, like she has strong sense of style and whatnot. She has strong opinions on what looks good and what doesn't. Yeah. And so it's funny too, because it gives me a new way of like what I have to live up to and like what she'll like too, you know, but she enjoys it all. It's like, you know, the custom motorcycles, there's constantly something going on. Low riders, you know, and
it's filling the, it's fueling the creativity,
man. And now it's gotten to the point too, where like the press stuff is really, it's becoming fun too. I think that as a different part of our life kind of like aligns too, it's like when you are proud and you are starting to be able to see, like you stand back and see what you both have achieved together. You're like, you know, like I know that even just this fall, like, you know, she's on the cover of Skin Unique Tattoo magazine, like next month, I think. Then the next month, like I'm on the cover of some other magazine. There's like 3 or 4 different articles coming out, you know, some of them that are like super business related, some of them that are super lifestyle oriented. And then you start getting into, you know, our house was on HGTV. That's super fun. We ended up being on the news a couple times for that. And like, so it's starting to really pay back, in all of the dreams that I had in the other aspects of creation are happening. And it's like, and man, I get super emotional about that kind of stuff. So I just like I get all teary eyed and stuff. And I'm just like, wow, dude, I'm like, it's what came from so much business orientation and focus ends up being this life that what I'm most grateful about is the freedom to create.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking at now.
Well, there's a theme of maxed out credit cards, little sleep, lots of energy drinks, sleepless nights, you know, inspiration, regret, you know, all the things. It's part of a journey of an entrepreneur, and a journey of an artist turned entrepreneur, and all of the above. Can you go buy flannels at the shop here in Tempe, or where do people buy your gear? So you'll start seeing exclusive collections in a lot of big box stores, Shields, name one, bunch of different workwear stuff. That new wholesale side of us is coming out this month, or I mean this fall. And you won't be able to find that stuff directly from us, but you will see those in stores as well, and it will be separate collections. As far as right now and always, our headquarters store is in Tempe, Arizona, right off of Elliott and the 10. And that is where our creative hub is, basically, and where all the inspiration comes. You can come there, you can get a tour of the back of the shop and stuff, which is really super rad spot. You'll see what my brain exploded into a room, basically. Yeah. And then, online, Dixxon.com, Dixxon.com, on Instagram at Dixxon Flannel Co. And if you're from other countries, we also have, you know, Dixxon Australia, Dixxon UK, and Europe, and everything else that you can follow as well. But yeah, we do about 2 to 3 fresh drops a week. We currently put out more collections than most companies combined, probably. But you know, that way, if you don't like what's coming out right now, then just wait 2 days. You might like something else that comes out. Well, thank you for sharing your story. We look to have a mutual friend come on that helps with some of your distribution to show how you've become profitable and some of those kind of things, kind of full circle. So I appreciate it, man. I'm grateful that we've got to know each other.
I can't wait to watch that one too. That's going to be a really good one.
Thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for your time more than anything and sharing your story.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah. A million ways to make $1 million.